Welcome to the Empowering Tomorrow's Automotive Software Podcast, brought to you by ETAS, a single source of cutting-edge software and hardware solutions that make automotive embedded systems safe, smart, secure, and sustainable. Each episode, we'll be joined by ETAS and industry experts to discuss how electrification, automation, and connectivity are impacting the automotive industry. Now, sit back and enjoy the discussion.
Hi, everybody at ETAS Empowering Tomorrow's Automotive Software Podcast. This is the second episode of our three-part series about red, blue, purple teaming. If you haven't listened to our first episode about red teaming, I encourage you to do so. It's very nice. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the blue teaming part. And in this episode, we will try to describe a little bit to you what is blue teaming, what are the persons working in it, and why is it necessary? My name is Reuter. I'm the responsible product manager for enterprise security services here at ETAS. And today with me, I've invited two experts, two blue team experts, Wolfgang and Sven. Hi to you.
Hi.
Hi.
Then I will start to introduce myself also. I'm Wolfgang Neufeld, also working at ETAS now for 5 years. I'm subject matter expert for red, blue, purple teaming at that point. And I will try to describe what my views are on that part today.
Thanks to you guys for having me. My name is Sven Ulke. I'm Senior Manager for Digital Forensics and Incident Response at a German IT company that consults customers during cybersecurity incidents. And it's a pleasure for me to be able to speak here because I also worked for ETAS for more than 3 years. And we had a really great collaborationship working together. So thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad having you both here. So, and I think we want to start with looking a little bit back in the early years. What was blue teaming about? So looking at the past 20 years and from that on, in the past, the blue team was more or less the administrator of the system. So he was doing the blue team part as kind of a side role, and he needs to do the operations, he needs to do the monitoring and everything. But today it changed a little bit, but I guess it makes more sense if we have really having a look at the history. How has this evolved over the past years? I think Sven is going to give us a little bit of an introduction to that.
Yeah, so exactly as you described it. So when we think back 20 to 25 years ago, it was this one IT guy or several IT guys that did all the IT stuff, the whole infrastructure, the firewalls, everything that you had in your company. And usually this kind of blue teaming didn't happen on purpose. It was only if an incident occurred or if something strange happened, like systems went down or there was a troubleshooting needed because some services were really slow. Then the administrator or the operator of the system started his investigation and checked what is strange on the system, what is causing this heavy load, and why are some things happening that are not normal on the system. And this was at a time where the IT environment was not so complex like it is today, where we have cloud services, software as a service solutions, lots of people working from home, out of the home office. So over the past 20 years, IT infrastructure got more and more complex, and also more and more new roles were introduced. And when we look at the blue team side, if you think about having just a few systems, you have to look out if they do or have some strange behavior. Now you have thousands of servers, different services. So now you really need experts in each of these special fields to figure out maybe if there's something wrong with your cloud instance, what might have caused this issue. And also when we switch to perspective, like you did in the first episode on the red teaming part, so 20 years before, the attackers had a really small number of systems which they were able to attack when they wanted to get into a company. Today they have various possibilities using cloud services, using email, all that stuff. So also the attack surface got much bigger. And so also the blue team must defend the company at several different positions at the IT infrastructure.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I guess this is a little bit easier for large corporations nowadays as they have more expertise and more persons working on that. But I guess it's still an issue for small and medium companies as they cannot afford having this kind of specialized teams. Yeah, I guess this is still an issue. We want to tackle this down a little bit in today's episode. But I guess it makes sense in the beginning that we have a little bit of an example. What is a blue team about? We thought maybe it makes sense to start with a non-technical example to better explain what's the purpose of a blue team. Wolfgang is going to cover that.
Yeah, I think it makes really sense to start with a non-technical example, because blue teaming is often misunderstood, and why you should let this blue teaming stuff be done by experts and why you need expert and expertise in that. And I invented a story some years ago to explain that a little bit. And from this invented story, I always tell about a paper factory. And in this paper factory, there is some careless employee just going in, smoking his cigarettes, and then not putting it out properly. And yeah, as it happens, it ignites the whole warehouse. Yeah, bad. Huge amount of damage is caused. This is bad. And the CEO of that company says, okay, this is something that if this happens again, we have a really big issue. We already lost a lot of money. We really have to avoid this kind of problem in the future. And they came up with some very easy ideas. So the first thing, of course, in a paper warehouse or paper factory, the thing which should have been already obvious, a smoking ban is introduced. So don't smoke in a paper warehouse. Okay, that's obvious. Yeah. So that's the first thing. And so far so good. And as an additional measure, a sprinkler system should be installed. So whenever there is a fire, it can be put out automatically by sprinkling water. And yeah, great. So to celebrate, after the new sprinkler system has been installed, and yeah, to celebrate the new sprinkler system, they started to fire up some sausages and steaks and grilled them next to the warehouse. And as expected, the fire alarm system recognized the smoke, sounds the alarm, and floods the warehouse with water as ordered. So another total loss, this time from water. And yeah, like IT threats, this is something, it wasn't analyzed by experts. So it was just a shot that we said, okay, we had the problem with fire. You can fight fire with water, that's obvious. But the problem was completely underestimated and misjudged. And in the end, it led to the same problem that was thought that has been solved once and for all already. And I think that story, I told that a lot, the story I told a lot to CEOs because they are mostly not technical, but then they understood why we need expertise also in that area. And this is, I think, a good start why, and now we are getting more and more technical after that part, why we say, please don't underestimate the problem and get help already by defining the problems, because if you don't get the expertise, you will lose a lot of money and time. And this is something that you normally don't have by the attack surface and the automated attacks that you currently face out there.
Yes. Thank you very much for this very good non-technical example. So, and now let's go a little bit deeper. And I think we now should switch to a more technical example. What are the challenges for blue teams? And I guess, Sven, you can give us a more technical one.
Yeah, sure. So to start with that, we decided to take some kind of ransomware example. What is meant by that? So ransomware is a kind of malicious software. Then when it will get executed on systems, it uses encryption algorithms to encrypt the data. And afterwards, if you want to get back to your data, you need the keys to decrypt the data. And the attackers usually have these keys on their side, and if you want to get access back to your data, you have to pay money for it. So you get a ransom note that is stating how you can recover your data, how you can contact the attacker, and what amount of cryptocurrency or money is needed to get that data back. And there are various other kinds of attacks on companies, but I think this is also a really good example to understand the problem that we are facing today on the blue team side. So when a ransomware attack happens, especially also smaller companies that do not have this kind of monitoring systems or people that are watching at the systems 24/7, at some point they will recognize that something is wrong, because after a system got encrypted, often normal services aren't working anymore. Systems are going offline. You are not able to visit your own company website, for example, or you are not able to transfer money, etc., etc. And so ransomware has one big positive aspect. If you are tackling such kind of incident, you will definitely find it out, because systems start to work. If we have other kind of attacks, there might be the chance that attackers are in your environment for several years before you recognize them. But when we find out that systems are encrypted and data is encrypted, we have some kind of systems where the attacker run malicious software, and this software somehow got not blocked by our security tools. This is the first question, how this could happen. But usually you want to know, how was it possible that such kind of attacker was able to get access into our environment? And this is also a good example that shows how complicated blue teaming is nowadays, because on this ransomware side, it's not that there's just one guy sitting at home and hacking the way into the company. It's like a criminal business with various jobs and roles. You have people that are developing the malicious software. You have people that are trying to get the initial access to the company, maybe by credentials and usernames in the darknet, or use vulnerabilities that you might have in some kind of software or appliances you are using to get initial access, and so on and so on. So it's a really complex business with a lot of expertise on the criminal side. And so there are various ways how it was possible that some kind of attacker could get access into your environment. And all this kind of possible entry vectors must be found and must be closed to make sure that if you have backups and could restore your data from the backups, that this kind of attackers don't come back. The second part is, it's also the question what the attacker did instead of just encrypting it. So nowadays, also before starting the encryption, the attackers steal sensitive data and exfiltrate that out of your environment. So customer data, construction data, business data, personal data of employees or customers are exfiltrated, and you will be forced by the attacker that this kind of sensitive data will get published if you do not pay the ransom. And also you have lots of legal problems with that, and the attacker knows that you are forced to do some claims at various, especially in Europe, various legal institutions. So the attackers have a great chance that you, on the defender side, must pay, even though if you can restore the data, you are not sure which data was exfiltrated, was it sensitive data or not. And so there's a great chance that the attacker has success and gets the money from such kind of incident.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess with those two examples, we really discovered that this is a very complex topic, especially in the blue teams, as you've mentioned, with the attackers having various teams trying to get access to the company, So I guess the expertise which is needed on the blue team part is also very crucial. And I think it makes sense that we'll have a look at the different kind of roles and expertise which is needed for the blue team. So maybe we'll start with the SOC analyst here.
Yeah, of course. I can try to answer that. Let's go to the ransomware example and try to figure out what's going on in an ideal case. I mean, you got hacked, you got ransomware, so that's already not ideal. But following from that, okay, what could have happened? What might have prevented then the further steps from ransomware? So you have some kind of systems already there, some kind of detection, some sensors. And then you have a special person there, which is the SOC analyst, which looks at some dashboards, which gets the alerts from all the systems. And yeah, in an ideal case, he finds some kind of suspicious behavior in the logs and can correlate them and say, okay, look at that endpoint, something really bad happened. Some malicious file has been downloaded, or while it's executed, it has some suspicious behavior on it. And then the SOC analyst would sound alarm and would say, hey, please, I need help. I think something fishy is going on. So this is the first thing that should happen in a company. And if this already is not going on, then you will have a bad time with ransomware. So this is the first line of defense that should work, and how you can maybe detect some kind of ransomware attack.
You just use the abbreviation SOC. Maybe you can just say what's the abbreviation for.
Yeah, so sure. Sorry for that. So SOC means Security Operations Center. So it's a kind of one single source of truth where you collect all your information, log files, to see how your systems are up and running, and which log messages are generated from each source or from each of your sensors that you have deployed in your environment.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So the next one in the line would be someone who is called a so-called incident responder.
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing this for a very long time, and you can imagine if the SOC analyst is at the beginning of this kind of blue team, which gets the alerts or finds some malicious behavior and rings the bell and says, okay, there's something strange ongoing. The incident responder itself is most of the time at the last part. So if all your prevention measures didn't work out and you have an IT or cybersecurity incident in your environment, then the incident responder is there to coordinate all the incident-related activities. And what is meant by that? The technical investigation part, but also the organizational investigation part. Like from the technical side, you will find out maybe what the attacker did do, how the software was named or created, or what the software did on your systems. But on the organizational side, he has to figure out and coordinate how you get rid of this kind of incident and how to, let's say it easy, kick the attacker out of the environment. And that's most of that's the whole role of the incident responder in the blue team. And which is really near or really close to that, and is also part of the blue team, is the so-called digital forensics analyst. And what are these guys doing? Like, they do the technical deep investigation stuff. So if you have systems that look suspicious, or if you know that the attacker executed the ransomware on a specific server, people took all the data of the server and do analysis and look for forensic evidence that can show you from which system did the attacker come, how was he able to access the system, which users and credentials did he use, which kind of malware did he bring onto the system, and what steps did he do on each of the systems, and what were the steps to come to the next system. And all of this stuff is done in the forensic analysis. And if you want to go one step deeper on the blue team side, then you need so-called malware analysts or reverse engineers, which is a really deep technical role and which have a great expertise in disassembling and decoding malware that is used, for example, the ransomware, and what are they usually doing in the ransomware. So in the early days of ransomware, there was a lot of issues in the ransomware itself. So encryption algorithms weren't implemented correct, and there were failures in it. Sometimes they didn't encrypt the whole data, just parts of files or the beginning of files. And so malware analysts try to figure out how does the ransomware work, which kind of evidences will be left on systems where the ransomware was run on, and if there's the chance that there's some kind of issue in the coding of the malicious software that might help in recovering the data without having to pay the ransom. And this is something that usually is done by a malware analyst in such kind of incident. And when we got called by customers that say, okay, we have the fear that we are having a cybersecurity incident which a ransomware group is involved or which might lead to ransomware, we nowadays have the problem that ransomware groups are professional attackers that work exactly the same like red teamers do, and also have same techniques that also maybe state-sponsored espionage groups use. So for us, it's not easy at the beginning to figure out which kind of attacker is in such kind of environment, and especially if before the encryption and ransom part, when we see, okay, there's an attacker in the environment and is active, we cannot say if this will lead to ransomware or to espionage. And what we can use for that is we can use another role, which is called cyber threat intelligence analyst. And what is meant by that? Within this role of the blue team, these guys are collecting reports and information about past compromises and attacks and correlate that. So if you find a specific forensic evidence within the ransomware incident, you can ask the cyber threat intelligence analyst and say, have you seen that before? Or have you any information that could tell us that this is such kind of attacker, or the attacker in various other cases which are related to the same or might be related to the same attacker group, the attackers did the following. And this really helps on the blue team side to figure out what kind of attacker do we have, for what kind of malicious software we have to look out, or also to find out what could have been the initial entry vector to get access to our systems, because attackers are lazy as well. And if attackers know that a special vulnerability works really well, there's a really high chance that they use the exact same vulnerability at different companies and different targets. And so this is also a great resource in the blue team that could help in handling such kind of incidents.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we covered already like 5 different roles. Is there still another additional role we might have missed?
I think the last one, the detection engineer, what really is so the role that is evolving right now and which brings all the pieces together. He has an oversight over all the different roles. He knows every interface to the others and tries to identify so-called indicators of compromise, which are specific patterns that in the end could lead to specific groups. And then you can tell, okay, this was some kind of ransomware group that we already know. And they usually do that. This is also a big help for the blue team in the end, that if you know, for example, it's Blackbuster group, then they usually do the following steps. They go for the DC first. They use emails to come into the organization, something like that. That helps a lot. And the detection engineer tries then to summarize all these kind of indicators of compromise and to improve the systems that you have and to shape them and make them more aware of what could go wrong or what did go wrong, and try in the end to prevent it so that it never happens again, or that you can detect it in the future more easily.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I think we covered a lot the different personas which are part of a blue team. I think what we also need to mention is it's not only about personas, but it's also about tools. And there's a myriads of tools around which you can buy to help the blue team basically do their work much more efficient. Just speaking of SIEM tools, security incident event management tools, we have EDR tools, endpoint detection and response tools, which are the new form of antivirus software, usually installed on clients and servers. We have network monitoring tools. We have sensors we need to install in our network to actually make detections. But what we see is you can easily buy from different vendors this kind of security appliances, this kind of tools. But I think what is crucial to understand is the work usually starts when you're going to deploy this appliance or software into your company. It's not ending there. This is where you have to define your processes. This is where you have to train your members of your crew team. And you have to basically make use of those tools. It's not ending with just installing an appliance and then saying to yourself, okay, it seems that I'm secure now. Let's wait if I see an alert. To basically invest a little bit of further education also inside your company for that. But what kind of challenges are there besides that? What didn't you to see typical challenges for companies if we are looking at the team?
I think for me, the favorite part is to have the whole blue team part internally. Mm-hmm. But that is something that only works for very big companies with a huge budget also. And there's also the problem of if you know what you need. Many companies already struggle to define what kind of roles and what kind of expertise you really need to defend in the end. So this is something that's very complicated and very complex. And for that, you already need a big company to handle that, in my opinion. And so the first thing that everyone thinks, okay, can't I buy that from outside, from a service provider? And I think there's pros and cons, and I think it works for depending on the company you have. And I think Sven is for the external company for sure. So I would hand over to him here for his insight on that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So exactly as you said, we do a lot of this kind of roles and offer a lot of kind of these services as an external party. And we are mainly focused on small, medium business and mid-sized companies. Because it's exactly that. Like, it's really hard to find all this kind of expertise on the job market. Cybersecurity talent shortage is even bigger than IT security challenge. But exactly as Wolfgang said, so it has pros and cons. And we can bring a lot of stuff from the external side. But even though if we are involved in an incident, we always need some counterparts on the internal side. So if we're looking at a technical perspective, how the incident happened, and if we were talking about, okay, how can we get business up and running and how can we get rid of the situation, we can say from a technical perspective, okay, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to rebuild this kind of systems, but we do not have the exact knowledge about the internal processes, the applications, the priorities, the dependencies, in which kind of row you have to restore some services that are dependent on each other. For all kind of this stuff, we need internal expertise, but also we bring a lot of knowledge with us because we hope that if you look at the internal side, that you have such kind of huge incidents, hopefully just once in 5 years and not every year. So we from the external side have a huge look also at other companies of various sectors and can say, okay, this kind of attackers usually do this and that and looking out for this and that. This is also knowledge that you can get from the external side as well. And in the perfect world, it's some kind of hybrid setup where you have an internal internal team with a few resources stuffed there. And if you really need it, you put additional services on it or additional experts from the external side. And this is also for us the most beneficial setup to work in such kind of incidents.
So a kind of combination.
Yeah.
Well, makes sense.
I think for small and medium businesses, that's exactly where the crucial part is, to get as much knowledge already and as much people involved and as much sensors and detection that an external party can help you in the end. So if you don't do logging, if you don't do EDRs and all that kind of stuff, the benefit from an external company can quite fast be very limited, because they have to do a lot of guesswork and they can't even do the forensics afterwards and help you how did the attacker get in, on what systems did the attacker maybe look around or whatever. If you don't have that kind of monitoring, at least in your environment, then there's also very limited what the external company can do then. So it's at least for the small and medium businesses, you should at least try to come to a state where you can say, okay, here we have detected that we are, we got hacked, that we have ransomware, suspicious behavior, and we have some kind of big log sources where you can then hand it over to an expert external party that then can really help you. If you don't have that and not the know-how to build that up, this is something that I would advise to get at least to that point. And this is already a big sum of money that you have to invest on resources, which is already hard for small and medium business. But doing that completely external, this is, in my opinion, that is an illusion to be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Then do you think maybe AI can help tackling that problem a little bit?
Yeah, great that Rene, you are really a salesman. So especially when I talk to sales guys from various companies and resellers, so AI is the solution for everything. No, so to stop joking, it's really impressive how AI evolved in this short period of time. And what we can say is that AI is definitely used on the attacker side and might be not in such kind of fancy ways that you might imagine. Like what we are seeing is that some kind of attackers have knowledge gaps in such kind of coding skills or programming skills, and they use AI for that to maybe develop their malware faster or to develop new kind of ways of how malware behaves, which they would have or had to invest much of money to get this kind of knowledge. So attackers use this as well, and especially they use this also for translation purposes. So nowadays you have attacking groups that are usually working in South America, for example. They are also now targeting Europe because AI helps them to translate their kind of malicious software also in German language or in other languages as well. So this is stuff that attackers already do. And also on the defender side, AI can really help in speeding up your analysis. Like if you're not so experienced in some tooling or maybe coding, you can also get help on that, especially if you have to walk through huge amount of data. This can be speeded up with it. And also AI can give you context information or like a kind of better Googling if you are figuring out some kind of malicious behavior and you are asked, okay, which kind of software this might be related to. But there's still work to do, and I have to work for more than over 30 years, and I think until retirement, even though with AI we will have lots of things and cases and incidents to solve.
Okay.
So when we are now talking about all these kind of ransomware stuff, and we more or less had the enterprise side of that. By enterprise, I mean the office world and all the email stuff, and which is quite known to be attacked. So, and yeah, everyone knows ETAS is an automotive company, or at least has its source from there, that it's working for automotive and it's very strong there. Do you see any of the attacks evolving also on the automotive side currently? Is that a thing? Do I need to invest in EDRs and stuff like that, and sensors also for the automotive world?
Yeah, I can cover that. If you look at the current development in the automotive industry, we are facing the so-called SDV, software-defined vehicle time. So means nowadays cars, they are not closed anymore, like 10 years or 15 years ago. No, they're usually defined by software. They have connections to various back-end systems, to cloud systems. They even have connections to each other. Car-by-car communication is possible. So the threat landscape nowadays is much more broader than in the past. So if you look back a little bit to the enterprise IT, I guess in the future, the automotive industry and especially cars will face nearly the same attack surface like what we have currently in the enterprise IT. I mean, just look at the technologies. So in the past, ECUs were highly customized, developed in C++ with a dedicated firmware running on the ECU. Nowadays, we see already embedded Linux being part of that. We have Bluetooth connections. We even have Wi-Fi in cars nowadays. And again, communication to the backend basically means there's also a communication channel from the backend towards the car possible. Just look at Tesla, who's providing a huge API interface where you can basically, with a simple access token, connect to the car and ask various insights about the car, like current battery capacity, even geolocation is possible, just by using an API as simple as we are using it in the backend system. So looking a little bit at the blue teams, I guess the car of the future also needs to have sensors inside the car. There needs to be a so-called vehicle SOC, Vehicle Security Operations Center, who is going to collect log data from cars driving on the street and then trying to also collect logs from the backend system and doing a triage there to see if someone is maybe attacking the current fleet of an OEM. Looking in the past 12 months, we saw a lot of attacks in the automotive industry where the attackers were basically able to take over the fleet using the backend systems. Because again, what is just mentioned, they are all providing APIs which you can basically talk to a whole fleet. And I guess this is a little bit of a doomsday scenario here, if you can take over a backend system and then basically take over the whole fleet. So monitoring, sensors, logging, this will all come to the car in the future, like we've seen it currently in the enterprise world.
Yeah, just the natural evolvement, whatever brings money. And then you might even have also the safety topic in the end by cars, if that is not separated, and maybe interfaces. So this can have serious consequences. So
just referencing to an attack published last week by the PC Automotive Group. I think it was a Nissan hack where they were also able, via Bluetooth connection, to hack into the car and basically make a persistence that were able to control using command and control server towards themselves. And in the end, they were able to basically manipulate the steering wheel during the driving. So this has some serious safety impacts now already.
Yeah, that are really some doomsday scenarios that we should really prepare for in the future to detect them and prepare that this never happens. And yeah,
definitely. So I guess we covered pretty good the history. We covered a little bit the challenges which are for internal or external blue teams. But despite that, do you think what are the further challenges for blue teams nowadays?
Yeah, so you said it in the beginning, like when you buy appliances or install appliances, this is not solving the issue. And that's exactly what we see. So in this kind of connected world and more data is collected, it's really hard to finding the right balance for detection capabilities and also to, at the same stage, don't overwhelm the analysts in the security operations center. So you need detection capabilities that are showing you if something is going on at a really early stage, but you really want to have a small amount of false positives, because otherwise, if lots of false alarms come into your security operations center, there's a really high chance that your security analysts oversee really true positive alarms because they are flooded by a huge amount of false positives. and this is called alert fatigue, to being so overwhelmed by false positives that you do not see the current attack ongoing. This is one huge challenge. And also, exactly as you described it in the car world, on the blue team side, you're always one step behind the attackers. So even though if the blue team nowadays tries to be proactive and implement detections, as Wolfgang described, attackers are evolving. They are finding new techniques to attack your infrastructure. They're finding new vulnerabilities, and you always have to react to that. And especially what we see in the last months that is ongoing, that a lot of customers improved really their security posture, brought sensors in the network. And what are attackers nowadays doing? They do not, in the ransomware example, encrypt on the system itself. They go to the hypervisor level and encrypt on the hypervisor stage, because they knew there is no such kind of security software that is able to be run on hypervisors itself. So this is such kind of what attackers do. And on the blue team side, you always have to cover that, especially also when you think about this kind of complex IT environments where your on-premise infrastructure gets connected to the cloud world and all is synchronized together. Maybe you have several hyperscalers or several clouds that are connected together. So this is also, as you described it, makes a really huge threat landscape and attack landscape. And all this kind of challenges are always compared to this, as we said in the beginning, this kind of talent shortage that we all have. This is one of the major problems or challenges that on the blue team side is there for the last years and is an ongoing problem. Yeah, and maybe to add one point to the talent shortage and exactly what we said in the beginning, also on the blue team side, what is a problem that is often underestimated is, especially as Wolfgang described, there are lots of tools, sensors, network monitoring, EDR system, SIEM systems. So on the blue team side, you have a huge tool landscape to handle and to work with. And these systems are all in itself complex, and most of the time they are not really good integrated into each other. So what is meant by that is that if some part of this blue teaming tools throwing alerts, it could be that the analyst has to jump into 3, 4, or 5 different systems or tools to figure out what really happened. And it's really hard for them to bring all that together to get the overall view. And this is a really, really challenging work to do. And this is also one major challenge, what we see, where customers are currently struggling with, especially if they already have a bigger team and onboarded experts and also got some of this kind of security tools already in place.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we covered a very good ground in trying to explain what are blue teams, what are their challenges, what are their tools they need to do. So hopefully you really liked that episode. And we were able to highlight it a little bit to you. What is the work of blue teams? I want to say thank you, Sven. Thank you, Wolfgang. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for the last one in this series about purple teaming. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Empowering Tomorrow's Automotive Software podcast. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about automotive embedded systems and ETAS's capabilities, visit our website at ETAS. That's ETAS.com.